Hello. Good evening, everyone. You are welcome. This is Relocating Right. And my name is Tolualade Somi. Okay, so you're welcome. Thank you for joining me. If it's your first time, you're welcome. If it's your second time, you've been here several times, you're welcome all the same. God bless you indeed. I'd like to encourage you to go right now and subscribe to our channel so that you get notification each time new episodes come in. Okay? And of course, let me remind you that the previous episodes would really, really bless you. I mean, I've heard testimonies about how each of the episodes have touched people's lives, how it has answered their questions, as they planned their relocation, even for people who are currently out of the country. They testified, about how those information have transformed their lives. Let me encourage you. There's so many of them, that you could search for. There's this one about understanding and maximizing the credit system. There's this one about what I wish I didn't pack. All right, that's for you if you're just traveling and you're wondering, okay, what exactly am I supposed to pack or take with me on this journey? What isn't needed? What do I compulsorily have to take along with me? And there was this episode about Australia. Are you considering Australia? That would answer so many of your questions and so on and so forth. Now, the last episode was about this interesting topic of burning bridges. I mean, how do I handle this aspect of um, helping, or how would I put it? Like you're ensuring that your relationships are intact even when you've traveled. How exactly do you go about these things? Relocating, and then what my what's it called? My guest did a fantastic work of talking about so many things that many of you will probably have you know never thought of in terms of relationships and especially with regards to relocation. You'll be amazed. So if you haven't been on the channel or on any of the other episodes, let me encourage you immediately after this one, or sometime in the course of the week, let me encourage you to please find time to go through each of those topics. They will really bless you. Now, today I'm excited to have with me here my own very sister, and I've known her for so many years. And this is proven. Her testimonies are proven. What God has done with her and through her, and still doing, and we still do, we have seen. And that's the reason I just had to bring her on this episode to talk about the house matters. Of course, we're going to talk about many other things. We're going to talk about family. This is somebody who's passionate about the family, passionate about marriage, passionate about so many things. But let me just read to you a bit about her profile. Now, my guest is an HR business partner, professional real estate agent, and a pastor in a local church. As a corporate business and religious leader, she's always busy raising the bar for her community in human resource capacity building, financial empowerment, and maximizing all people's potentials in God. Now, she loves to speak, and she has spoken in over 1,000 platforms and a countless hours as a counselor and a coach. Okay. She's also involved in so many initiatives, advocating for representation and fairness. She volunteers her time and expertise as a career coach to serve on the board, of organizations where she serves indigenous youths in First Nation communities. But that's not all. There's a major reason I brought her here today. She's a professional real estate agent. I've mentioned that earlier. And she's an active member of Canadian Real Estate Board. Wow. Now, she has over 8 million Canadian dollars worth of transaction under her belt. So this is someone you can truly trust. Kemi is always ready to help with real estate investments, home buying and selling, especially in Calgary area. She's a proud member of the CIR Realty family, and she carries the values of hard work, integrity, and outstanding client service. Okay, when she's not making home ownership dreams come true for her clients, she also enjoys spending time outdoors with her family or serving in her local church. Now, I would like for you to please receive with me in this and on this episode of Relocating Right, Kemi CD.
Woo!
You
Thank you.
are welcome, Kemi. So good to
Thank you
see you
so
again.
much. Yeah, it's been a
Yeah,
while.
yeah,
But thank
I
you. Thanks for
know.
having me.
I've been looking forward to this day, and I'm glad it's finally here. And especially because I know that God's going to use you to help people, help people who are confused about certain things. And there's just going to be a word going out to them today, being a blessing to them in every ramification. So say thank you. I'm saying thank you for coming. And of course, thank you to your sweet, darling husband for allowing you to be here as well. All right. So now let me start from this. I was personally thinking about this when I read through your profile, in the evening, and I was thinking to myself, how exactly is Kemi doing this? How is she an HR? How is she into real estate? How is she a career coach? How is she a pastor? How is she a wife? How is she a mommy? Can I go on, please? What exactly
Thanks.
is her
Thanks
secret?
for asking that question. I ask myself the same question every time. And that's because sometimes I'm like, how did you get here? Uh, I
Hmm.
just I'm just so passionate about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And you know that saying that says where there is a will, there's a way. If
Yeah.
you are passionate enough about something, you will find a way, even if it
Mm.
means losing sleep, even if it means having shorter weekends, even if it
Yeah.
means I get to put my kids in the car to go show places to clients so that I
Mm.
get the best of both worlds. I'm still with them, and at the same time, I'm trying to serve my
Yeah. Still
clients.
doing that.
So
Mm.
yeah, so I think it is all the things that I do is more passion based than anything else. And
Mm.
that is how I get by.
Wow. That's awesome. Really awesome, Bookie. I said Bookish.
She just called me my
God
sister's
have
name.
mercy. If Bookie was here, she'd be very happy, right? I know. Okay, so I think that's really awesome. So talking about passion, I know we didn't really plan to talk about this, but please let me ask. Is it really worth pursuing passion if it's not going to put food on your table?
Um, I think you just need a plan. And what I mean by that is I am always very particular that first and foremost you need to put food on the table for your family, for your children.
Hmm.
That is priority.
Hmm.
But at the same time, keeping your vision in view. So you
Hmm.
don't lose yourself to providing, but at the same
Hmm.
time, you owe them that. So when I see people pursue passion and their
Hmm.
families are hungry, I'm like, that's not responsible. You need to first
Yeah.
feed and then you can, it's like Maslow hierarchy, right? Hierarchy of needs. You need to
Mm-hmm.
feed the bottom, that is food, shelter, clothing needs to be there, then you can
Hmm.
pursue. People can get into the spiral of okay, finding money, and they lose vision. But the
Hmm.
smartest thing to do is I think you should be responsible towards your family first, and then you can pursue vision. And if you're married, then it's a question of how do you both juggle both. Maybe someone is pursuing their vision for now while the other person is providing the table. Then at some point you get to switch once the business is now doing better or things like that. You just need to think through it, but being responsible towards your family is very important. Yeah.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much for that response. I know that somebody's going to find that useful. Okay, so I want you to say something about your career coaching. You said something about you serving youths in First Nation communities. What's that about?
Okay, so First Nation communities are the indigenous Canadians that
Okay.
the way I usually describe them is when you say people, what we call omonile, they are the
Mm,
people that own the Canadian land even before they got independence and all of those things. So they are the indigenous, and that indigenous groups are also they are also minority groups in Canada. And of course, they usually feel marginalized just like every other minority groups.
oh,
So the
yeah.
youth are always very, it's always very important when we serve those communities, because I'm also from a minority group in Canada, which is Black, African, Nigerian, here. So there is an organization called Inspire. Inspire is a youth development um, a youth development NGO, and I just act as a career development coach to them, where I provide just career development plans, making sure they are tracking to it, showing them pathways they can explore to be able to get to one, their dream, two, to be able to put the food on the table, basically, and at the same time find the balance between putting food on the table as well as what they're passionate about. So that is what I provide ad hoc. It's unpaid. It's a volunteer role, but it is highly impactful because this
Mm,
is also a marginalized group that most of their
yeah.
youth turn to drugs and things
Mm,
like that. So they are very passionate about getting their members out of that rot into mainstream academia, careers, and all of those things. So that is how I support them.
wow, that's awesome. Well done, Kemi. Because while I understand that when most Nigerians or people generally, because it's not just Nigerians that relocate to other countries, I mean, different
Right.
people from Asia and all of that are in Canada and Australia, and everyone is always almost like looking for greener pasture, if I can put it that way. But just to say that looking beyond ourselves to looking out for other people, I think that's the way to go. And I believe that for those of us who are also Christians, I think that's the kind of life that God wants us to live. I believe. While I know that people want to hustle, people want to work, put food on their tables, I think God also wants us to be on the lookout for others. I just kind of love what you're doing. So I'm saying
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for
Thank
giving to
you.
the Lord. And we should
Yes.
all look to doing that. Because I mean, there's something about traveling abroad and not really thinking that you could give,
To the
because
community.
people
Yeah.
are thinking of taking,
Mm,
like, what can I
absolutely.
get? Mm,
Yeah. And that also dovetails into career, because
yeah.
I've also spoken to people that are freshly relocating and saying, volunteering some of the skills you bring with you is also a way to get experience. In
Mm,
Canada, they call it Canadian experience. There are some roles you cannot occupy except they can ascertain that you've demonstrated those competencies in a Canadian environment and you have an understanding of their laws and regulations. And the only way to get that, you can't get that from Nigeria. You can't
yeah.
get that from Google. You can only get that experience by flexing those muscles. And one way to do that is
Mm,
volunteering. When I
yeah.
started with Inspire, I didn't have my first job in Canada. And it was
Okay.
my first way of getting through the door to say, I bring HR experience from multinational organizations in Nigeria. I might not have Canadian context, but I can share with them how they can grow. I can share with them what they need. I can look through
Mm,
their resume and things like that. And that already is a Canadian experience. And it gave me
wow.
exposure as well, which I could use going forward.
I hope somebody caught that. So you could actually have so all this Canadian experience, Australian experience, UK experience, they're always asking for, you can get them through volunteering. That's what I heard just now, right? Good.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that joker that you just quickly gave us now. Now, so let's talk about homes. That's why we are here, or houses, I should say, that then becomes homes to us when we start living there. Now, your profile says that you love making home ownership a dream come through for your clients. But before home ownership, I believe that there will be people who are watching right now wanting to relocate. So what's the process? I mean, how should what should their plans be? I often hear people talk about them coming into a new space and they having to stay in an Airbnb. Are those the ideal? What exactly is the process to this, please?
Okay, so the way Canada works is a lot different from Nigeria.
Okay.
So I think the very first step to this process is go and watch the video on maximizing credit. I think, is that the title of the video that we talk about the credit system?
Yes, yes, yes.
That is a good first step. And that's because our housing system or real estate system is built on loans, is built on
Mm,
credit, which is called mortgage. So the moment you get that understanding on how credit works, then you will get how mortgage works. So mortgage is a loan that you're given by the bank or any financial institution to be able to access or to be able to buy a house. And your credit history matters in that equation. And credit history means that you have demonstrated to a financial institution that you are responsible, meaning you use your credit, you
mm,
return the money on time, then it gives you a
mm,
rating. And that rating is called your credit score. That credit score also matters to the bank that wants to borrow you money for your house. You can see the
mm.
reason why it's connected.
Yeah.
So the moment you get into the Canadian system, for instance, or any of the developed countries, getting your credit score or your credit rating right is the first place to start,
Mm.
because that is going to determine if you are responsible, you might want to use that word,
Eligible.
or eligible for me to give you money. So an average bank in Canada will give you like $1,000 or $500 to start because you don't have history with them. So they can't
Mm,
just give you big money. So see it as, you know, that scripture that says that if you're faithful in little,
mm-hmm.
much will be given to you. So they
Yeah.
give you, that is your first credit card. It will have like $500, $1,000, and then your credit score will start to change or start to increase or decrease depending on how faithful you are with your credit card. So the
Mm,
moment you're ready for home ownership and you go back to either the same bank or any financial institution, they pull your credit rating to see the 1,000 we gave you or the 500 we gave you, how did you use it? Because that
mm,
is what gives you a credit score or credit rating. So two things I'd like to mention there is if you're going into home ownership, your credit rating, like I said, is very important. And the way to improve your credit rating is that you is not by running away from credit card, it's by using it.
yeah.
Be- because coming from Nigeria, where we are cash based,
Yes.
it is the money you have, you spend. That's not how it
Mm-hmm.
works. They also expect that you also borrow, but be responsible. So you
Mm-hmm.
borrow, you return it, you know, and your score will start to change. That means you're responsible. You can borrow, we
Mm,
can trust you. You know, they say abroad, what we trade is trust. Because why would I give you $1,000 to start with? I don't know you. All I have
mm,
is your social insurance number, and I know where you live. That's
mm,
pretty much what it is, and of course, your travel document, and that's it. But they still give you because they want to see if you can be trusted. Anyway,
mm,
that's one side to the story. So when it's time to get a house, the question is, when is the right time? I say the right time or the best time once you relocate is as soon as you can. And two ways: as soon as you can, because one of the most stable way of building wealth is through real estate.
mm.
Because unlike any other form of money, it is one of the most stable. I
Okay.
read I read I read an article just last week that says that your house, in the Canadian in the Canadian space, your house would likely increase to about 50% of its value in 10 years.
Mm,
How, and the system is structured in such a way that you really cannot, you can only save as much money because there is By the way, our housing is you pay your lease for your house, they call rent. You pay your rent every month. So you are not waiting 1 year like we normally do in Nigeria. You pay every
Yeah.
month. And that's the reason why it's so fast paced. The moment you pay one, you're already on the clock for another. And all of your bills are monthly, some bi-monthly, and all of those things are hitting your paycheck on a bi-weekly basis. So that's the reason why people run, because the moment you pay one, there's another. So that is something to consider. So a lot of times when we, and that's the reason why I say home ownership as soon as you can. There are two things that you need for home ownership. There is the funds, which is money that I have that I want to use towards home ownership. In Canada, the system is so controlled that you can't just ship money from Nigeria and you can use it to buy a house. You must be able to explain where the money is coming from. You must have documentation. You must have, if not, what we call FinTrack. FinTrack is like our EFCC. It's going to come knock at your door. Where did you find that money? Because they know how much you earn. And they know you cannot save that much, depending on whatever it is your situation is. Situation differs. And I've also seen situations where people actually bring money from home and they're able to demonstrate where that money came from. Either they sold the house back home or they had some form of savings and investment. You must just have documentation to back that up. And that money must at least spend 90 days in a Canadian bank, because they also run their checks and they also make sure nobody is whistleblowing in your own country saying somebody has carried money away.
I know, right? I
So
saw it yesterday.
exactly. So before you steal money at home and run to Canada and then go and buy a house, all of that, they would have done all their due diligence before you get to a point where they can okay you to say, okay, this money is yours, it is valid, and then you can use it towards home ownership. So that being said, that's one part of the puzzle. The other part of the puzzle is now the mortgage system. How does it work? An average house here, if we convert it to Naira, let me throw out numbers. 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath. That means 2 bathrooms, 3 toilets. That's what we call it in Nigeria. That's an average house. And it has 1 garage for a car. That's an average house. Depending on where in Canada you are in, if you are in somewhere like Ontario, Toronto, those are insanely expensive. Vancouver, those are eyebrow. If you don't have $1 million, $1.5 million, $800,000, you are not likely to be able to compete for those type of houses. To buy, I'm talking about buying. To rent is going to be a stretch as well, because if I'm buying a house, you can imagine how much I'll collect, right, as the rent. But if you go to other provinces, like I am in Alberta, Alberta is known for the tax relief. We pay 5% in GST, that's goods and sales tax, while in Ontario and Vancouver, they pay 13%.
Wow.
Which already shows you the differentiation in terms of the standard of living.
Okay.
So I'm just throwing, it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
But
well,
anyway.
Thank you. I mean, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. So so that also helps you in deciding where you want to go, right?
Yeah.
Because we pay less taxes because in Alberta we have oil and gas. So what we produce locally nets off that cost to us as people that reside in that province, unlike the other provinces. So the mortgage system relies on your credit score, which we talked about, relies on the money that you have in savings to be able to do what we call a down payment.
Okay.
So down payment is a portion of the value of your house that has to belong to you. So if your house, throwing out numbers, is $100,000,
okay,
you cannot just go to the bank and tell them to give you the whole thing. You need to have a stake in it. If not, it's a risk factor to them. So
Yeah.
And the best or the good thing about Canada is you can have, if you have as little as 5%, you can actually own a home, which is really good.
Wow.
Five,
Awesome.
5%,
Mm.
which is good. So the question is, so how do I become eligible for the remaining 95%? So the 95% is not just because it's determined by some factors. One is how much you earn.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't give mortgage to people that don't have jobs. Why? Your risk profile is higher because how do
Yeah.
you pay back
Pay
your
back.
mortgage? And that's the reason why when you ask the question, when can I own a house? I said as soon as possible. That means the moment you get a job that you can use as
Yeah.
a criteria for mortgage eligibility, then you must, I advise you start to talk about home ownership. That's the next
Mm.
thing on your agenda. Because paying rent, I call it dead money. When you pay
Mm.
rent, you are paying your landlord's mortgage.
Mm.
And when you pay your landlord's mortgage, he is getting in return something called equity. Equity means that you are having, that is your own stake in the house. So that means you are paying for somebody to get more stake in his own house.
Oh, yeah.
So as soon as you get a job in Canada, any of the developing countries, the next thing on your agenda should be home ownership, not
Mm.
getting a car to put on Instagram,
Hey.
not making, not showing them that you've arrived. We understand you've arrived, but you need to create wealth. And one of the
Mm.
ways to create wealth for yourself, for your children, remember, you are relocating not as a child. What
Mm.
we have as immigrants is we almost have to double our pace than the people that have been here longer in terms
Yeah.
of how we can, the amount of money we have in investments to the amount of money we can access at retirement. An average Caucasian have started do their first job or get their first job at the age of 13 or 14. And out of
Mm.
your paycheck is your retirement fund. And you are
Wow.
arriving at age 40, quarter to 50, and you are also retiring at the same time. So you have to, your pace has to double. And
Mm.
that's the reason why a lot of people are under pressure and all of that. But home ownership is one way to double that because then you can gain equity. And when you
Mm.
sell that house, there's something called capital gains. That value, the value you get in capital gains, there is no type of investment in Canada that will give you that kind of returns. Our fixed
Mm.
deposit here is between 2% to 5%. Can you believe it? When
Mm.
I used to do fixed deposit in Nigeria, you will get 13%. You get
Yeah.
17 when you're lucky. 2,
Mm.
2%, 3%. So you really cannot put your money in the bank. You have to
Yeah.
be financially uh, smart to be able
Yeah.
to walk through the system.
Invest.
And real estate is
Invest.
one big
Yeah.
way to do that.
Mm.
So that is just my intro. There's a lot of
Wow.
details. I just don't want to
Wow.
overwhelm you.
Awesome. 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 Whew. Interestingly, I wasn't even going in that direction just yet, but thank you for going there all the same, because now I understand, or we understand, that one of the first things you should consider when you relocate is to buy a home. The next thing should not be trying to impress anyone, trying to, buy the big cars. The most important thing, or one of the most important things when you have settled in, is to get a home. And of course, you've heard Kemi say it now. You need to, you need to listen to that other one, that episode that talks about
Credit.
credit system, the credit system, because a lot of people don't understand that, especially because because of where we are coming from, we've not been used to that. So please let me encourage you to listen to that, and then you will be able to understand this better. But Kemi, let's deal with, or let's talk to people who are trying to relocate now, and they're like, okay, so how do I rent? I know I have heard you say it's important to own homes, but you see, at this point, we are just coming to Canada, or So what exactly should we be looking at? Like how much should we be looking at? What are those things that we need to consider in the process of getting a house or an apartment? Is it important? Is the number for instance, what is reasonable or what is realistic for you as a family of two, as a family of three? Back home in Nigeria, you were living in a 5-bedroom apartment. I get to Canada, do I have to look for the same 5-bedroom apartment? So let's talk about this. Yeah.
Okay, the first reaction is if you live in 5-bedroom in Nigeria and you want to look for 5-bedroom here, it is not impossible. And that being said, it is a question of affordability. Can you afford it? A lot of times when you are relocating, you have to be financially smart. And one of the ways is because you're also not sure of how fast work is going to come your way. So you might want to save some steam, save some finances, some money to be able to tide you over that journey. To share my story, I got my first job after 4 months. If I didn't have money or didn't have any financial capacity to be able to wait for 4 months, then that would have been a problem. And like I said,
Wow.
renting houses is on a monthly basis. You are paying monthly. And you're not just paying for the rent, you're paying for the light. The light has to be on. You're paying that monthly. You need internet. Internet has to be monthly. I'm talking about basic.
Yeah.
Day one. Day one. Light, you pay for the house, you pay your light, you pay internet, basic. And you feed, of course. You have to eat. Those are basic day one. And of course, the house you get, you need a starter pack. I call it starter pack. You need a starter pack. 2 pots, 4 plates, 4 cutleries. You need a mattress, a bed, those things. So I think saving your steam is very important because you never know how far your journey is. If you're lucky to be one of those people that work remotely, lucky you are one of the blessed few. You are also working, right, in another time zone that takes its toll. Anyway, that's a story for another day. But anyway, so I would say where you go or what you can afford, there is a question of affordability. What can you afford? In the news 2 or 3 days ago, we are at an all-time high when it comes to rent. And that's because our mortgage rate is now at an all-time high. Our mortgage rate, according to the Bank of Canada, is about 5%. And that is for 5 years fixed. And you might not, to appreciate that number, when I got to Canada about 5 years ago now, our mortgage rate was about 1.6%. So see how far we moved. So a lot of people are not buying houses. So our rental is skyrocketing. So as at 3 days ago, just to throw out numbers, an average rent for the whole of Canada is about $2,100 per month. And that is just putting all the statistics together. So where you live is also a determinant factor, of course. If you live in Alberta, where we pay less taxes, if you live in Vancouver, downtown, where 1-bedroom apartment is over $1 million, it's all those factors come to play. But according to Statistics Canada, they were just saying our average has significantly increased. So I would say start out moderate. That's where I would say start out moderate. There is also a question of, which is something a lot of Nigerians miss, is also your family size. If you have a family size, for instance, if you have 3 children and a husband and a wife, that's 5, a family of 5. Yes. You can hardly find a landlord that will give you a 1-bedroom apartment because they're trying to save costs. They would not do that. But if you have, the dynamics is also different. When you have your children have 2 same genders, what they count that 2 same genders as is they can share a room. Do you get? So there's a lot of dynamics that come. There's a lot of, so that is why different situations will play out a bit differently. So that has to come into play. So I would say if you're coming as a family of 5, at least it cannot be less than 2 bedrooms. It cannot. Usually it's likely to be 3, but it cannot be less, because getting a landlord to give you that will be very difficult. So that is one side of the story. And the costs, I would say keep your costs to the barest minimum, because like I said, you are not sure of how the long haul. So
Like
somewhere I think,
you said, keep your steam, right? I took
yeah,
that one.
yeah, keep your steam because you need it.
Yeah.
So rentfaster.ca, rentfaster.ca is a good
Okay.
website to go. I am mindful of those that find houses on Facebook.
Hmm.
It's an open market. I've seen a lot of
Yeah.
people get their hands burnt. There is no background check to the landlord, supposed landlords. If you transfer dollars to them and they run away, Facebook will tell
Wow.
you they're not responsible. Some people have really gotten their hands burnt with just going into open marketplaces and finding houses. Is it that some people have not found? Yes, I've seen some people it worked for, but I don't
Hmm.
advise it. So, but if you go to a website like rentfaster.ca, it's going to give you rentfaster.ca in any province in Canada, for instance, that you want to find a home, and they will tell you what the rental looks like. And then you can plan. And you can even engage with the landlord on that site.
Okay.
Some landlords, though, just a caveat, if you want to find a house from Nigeria, I would suggest you have some form of connection with someone in Canada. The reason
Yeah.
being that we usually want like a guarantor,
Yes.
because you don't have history, you don't have
Mm-hmm.
credit history, you don't have a job yet. So it's a risk for them, right? But if there's somebody standing in for you, then it makes the conversation a bit easier. For myself, for instance, our first home here, our rental, it was a friend that stood in for us as a
Mm.
guarantor. And that was how the landlord agreed to the deal. So that might make your life a bit easier. Or if you're lucky to have someone put up a house and the person's name sounds like my own, so you can say my
Mm.
brother, that might
Mm.
also work for you as well. Because I've also heard testimonies of people that says, hey, I like the house, only for me to chat the landlord. And guess what? It was a Yoruba person. And we were able to chat.
Wow.
And the person understood the concept of relocation and the fact
Yeah.
that you don't have any guarantees, but they were willing to take that risk for me. So but it's
Mm.
just something to consider depending on your dynamic. So those are
Mm.
things to, another thing to consider is, one, of course, you need to determine where you're going. The province that you arrive at is, like I
Okay.
said, is very important. Some provinces are more expensive than the other, but opportunities also exist. It's like saying, I don't want to live in Lagos because it's expensive in Lagos. But Lagos
Mm-hmm.
has more opportunities, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I describe
So are
Toronto
you
and
willing to
Vancouver.
take the risk?
Right, exactly. That's the way I describe Toronto and Vancouver. When people are like, it's so expensive, I'm like, yeah, boy, it's like Lagos. That's where all the
Yeah.
jobs are. That is
Mm-hmm.
where, so it depends. So you need to, as a family, weigh that. The moment you determine where you want to live, then you need to consider things like the schools. What type of schools do you want your kids to go to? If you have kids, if you don't have kids, good for you, less things to consider. Then you need to just consider where the jobs are. And you want to live not too far from where the jobs are so that you can take those opportunities. So if you have kids, you need a balance between where the jobs are and where the schools are, because you also don't want a case where you are traveling. Anyway, you don't want to travel for your kids to get to school. That's one. Two, they also have a catchment system. Catchment
Mm.
system being that your kids can only attend schools in their catchment area, except it's a private school for those that can afford it. An average person cannot. So almost almost a good chunk of immigrants, all our kids go to public school because they are well funded, they are good, there's a
Yeah. You
standard.
know, when you say public, there's a way that appears to us, especially
Yes,
coming from the side of the world.
I
You're like,
know.
what? You know what our public sounds like anyway. So,
Yeah,
so
our
I
public
don't.
is very. I understand. My kids too are in private schools in Nigeria, so I get it. But
Yeah.
when you see public schools and you know that they have put in not just thoughts, they put in
Yeah.
systems, and the system
Yeah.
works, you
Yeah.
know. And of
Mm.
course, there's a part of you cannot, an average person, and I keep using that word, is I've also seen people relocate and they have everything they need, you know. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is they have the cash that translates into this economy. Good for
Yeah.
them.
Mm.
So, but an average person, you likely have your kids go to public schools. So, and those public schools also
Which
now
is
have
good.
rate.
Which is good. That's where the emphasis is for me. I like us to let. I mean, people need to know that it's good. It's not like your the public school that you knew or that you know back home. It's good public school because it's owned by the government, right?
Right? Is owned by the
Mm-hmm.
government. It is, and we're not talking about the government. We're talking about government that works.
Yeah.
We're talking about quality education. We're talking about system sustainability. We're talking
Mm.
about accountability on the side of the teachers, on the side of even the people that are supporting the children. There is so much that our public school offers. An average person, when they relocate, when you go to public schools, your mouth will be ajar at how much is in the system, what it looks like, the ambience, the curriculum. There's just so much that private school will not necessarily be your very first point of call.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not impossible. I keep saying that it's not impossible, but it's just that they are so pricey that if you're an average person coming from Nigeria, you're trying to save steam, you're not likely to start first with paying
So that's okay. Mm.
$6,000 per term as a school fees.
Yeah.
We're not talking about your we're not talking about your house or anything. Some
Mm.
people can afford it on the immediate. Some people transition into it as time goes on. So preference plays out there. Then where your kids' school are is important. So that might be a factor to consider into where your home is. You also want to consider your own as well in terms of your commute. So how far is the house, the home to downtown? We call them downtown. Downtown is usually where most of the hubs are. So that's the Victoria Island of, you know, the city where most of the jobs are. How is the commute? Is there bus system, train system? How can I? How many minutes will it take me to get to downtown? The reason why we use downtown is an average job will likely come from the downtown of the city. Some will be elsewhere, but it's just rough estimate. And all of those things will play out to determine where you want your house to be located. And
Mm.
that is, I mean, your rental. The moment you're
Okay.
ready to buy, then it's all similar things to consider, but it's just that you are considering more than that. Is now pricing, is now location, it is how the rate at which homes appreciate also differs depending on what part of the city you live. And those are things you will consider when it comes to home ownership. But for rental, is a bit simpler. It is about your lifestyle and how do you plot your lifestyle around your house, your church, where is your church located if you attend church, if you work, where is the job located or might be located, the preferred schools. Schools, I'm sure you know, if you don't, we have different types of public schools. So public schools also comes in levels, also comes in preference. So there is the Board of Education of your province. That is like they are fully government funded, government owned, government controlled. Then you have what we call CSSD. That is the Catholic school system. It is also government funded, but the government do not have full control because there is a religious piece to
Okay.
a Catholic school system. Then you have the charter. The charter school system is still also government funded, but the only piece to charter is one, they wear school uniforms, they use traditional school methods. So they are if I'll give a literal example, charter schools is like our traditional school in Nigeria, which means they follow through on they don't use the Montessori. Yeah, I was trying to look for the Nigerian way to understand things. So charter
Mm.
they don't use Montessori. They use the traditional way. You cram your numbers, you know, things like
Really?
that. Yeah.
That's
So, but charter
interesting.
school, some people prefer it because one, they feel it might not give too much shock to their kids because that's where they're
Okay.
coming from the system of
Oh,
you have
oh,
a lot of, charter school has a lot of homework
okay.
compared to the other set of schools. We are not used to for CSSD or the Board of Education schools, they don't believe in overloading your kids with homework because they believe
Mm.
if they've done what they need to do in school, then they don't necessarily need to take it home. So it is if they are not done, then they can take it home as a homework. So it depends on your
But let me
preference.
ask, sorry, let me ask this. I'm not sure. I don't know if you'll be able to answer it, but let me just try. So what's the outcome? Looking at the across board, do they
The
have the same outcome?
um from the data, the outcomes are almost the same. In fact, the schools that have the the differential, the higher differential, are schools they call French immersion.
Okay.
So Canada is a lot of complexity, but Canada is bilingual. That means we
Yeah.
speak English and French to the
Yeah.
highest level. So everything we do comes bilingual. So there are some schools that are called French immersion. That means they get to teach your kids French to up to grade 12. Grade 12 is like diploma.
SS3.
No, it's
Okay.
more than necessary because the moment you are
Okay.
done with grade 12, you are also going to get a diploma
Mm.
and you can work with it from grade 12. But
Okay.
anyway, because this it is the data shows that the children that also learn alternate language have more cerebral blah 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 scientific capacity, and they usually turn out better at the end of that grade 12. So those are the ones that are topping the chart. Then of course charter, because they do traditional learning and like that. And then, of course, there's the private schools, and private schools can be any of the three. So it can be French, it can be normal, it can be, it can be Christian. So
Mm.
private schools, they're in a different bubble of their own. Anyway, so all of these things has to determine where you want your kids to go.
Mm.
And of course, your religious preferences, because of course, government owned, government funded, government run, they have more input, and every of the legislation regardless of your religious preference, plays out in those schools. So you need to think really deeply. While religious run schools, of course, have that at the back of their mind. So a lot of immigrants drive their children to religious schools because at least, like I'll jokingly say, I can deal with Mary. At least is in the Bible, is Jesus mother. I can deal with Mary. Jesus knows I know Mary, so I can deal with that compared to some others.
Oh
So
my
preference,
goodness.
and I've seen people just go to CBE school. Mine
Okay.
is because I live in Calgary, so it's Calgary Board of Education, but that follows anywhere you live. So if you go to any of the Board of Education schools, it's going to come with the name of the province, then Board of Education. And some people just throw their kids in Board of Education schools because it's convenient, it's closer to the house. People just have different reasons how they come about that. But in terms of housing, it also determines where your house is located. So you might want to be strategic to say, ask questions, Google, check out reviews, and see what is your preferred school. And then you can live around that preferred school because you cannot just jump from one community to go and attend a school in another community. It doesn't work.
Mm.
It doesn't
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
I've always liked that system. I think that's the way it is in the US and the
The
UK as well. Not having to travel. We actually do travel here to take our kids to school. That's stressful in a way, you know.
Absolutely.
Wow, thank you so much. Okay, so that's it about the house. Wow. So I can actually, so from all of the things that you've just said now, it means I can be in Nigeria planning to relocate. Imagine that I'm coming in to Canada by the end of this month or by October. I can start trying to get a house. My friend who lives in Canada can stand in for me,
Yeah.
while I'm trying to make my plans here and all of that. And I can actually get my own house and move in. So what that
Yeah.
means, Kemi, is I don't necessarily have to have someone that I'm needing to like stay with, pending the time,
Yeah.
that
That
I just,
dynamic,
come live in my own house. Yeah.
yeah, that dynamic is different. I've seen people that move from the airport to their rental, and they don't have,
Mm,
and that's because they had someone that could help them with that legwork, go check the house physically, because of course there's a part of what you see online might not look, so pictures can be whitewashed, can be, that's why there's Photoshop. So
yeah.
also that's the reason why we also encourage that, have someone that can go look at it for you,
Mm.
and that
So
way you can.
that means, Kemi, that we should, as much as possible, like go to places or location where there's like a support system. Is that what you're saying in essence?
that will be that will make your life easier. And
Mm,
that doesn't mean it's impossible to go to a place where you know nobody. That is also
mm,
possible. But it's just that it's easier when there's somebody to tell you where to go, how to go about things. It just makes your life easier. And I've also spoken to people that were like, I just walked into the city, I didn't know anybody, because I actually do not want to know anybody, because I want to start from
wow.
zero.
Okay.
Depending on, some people have had traumatic experiences, right? So they just want to walk away from everything.
Mm,
Well, so the dynamics plays out differently. But if you're someone that has a child or have children, I would say go to where people, someone at the very least, one, even if not 21, because it's just going to help you, especially when you have to, it helps you settle faster. Because if you have a child or children, you're not only settling for yourself, you're also helping
yeah.
them.
The children, yes, that's very important. In fact, that leads me to my next question now, because we have just a few more minutes to go. So we've been talking about houses, but the family living in a house is what makes the home. So let's talk about the intentionality of keeping a home. How does this work for you as a minister of God? And I mean, having seen experiences both back home and here, what for you is important in being in the intentionality of keeping our home together, like the marriage, the children, like that.
One thing people underestimate is the impact of relocation on your mental health,
Mm,
on your marriage as well. Changing location, going away from family and friends, going away from the life you know, it's going to take its toll on your marriage. It's going to take
mm,
its toll on your mental health. And that means that as you relocate, it's going to impact your natural responses to your marriage, your natural responses to how your marriage dynamics works. So, so it plays out differently for different people. So for instance, you're now moving into a system where the moment you get there, you are, depending on who you are, you're likely to be starting from the bottom of the food chain.
mm.
They call you low income earners as well. Even though when you file your first taxes, the first time I saw it, I'm like, go forbid me, I'm not low income enough. But anyway,
Okay.
because in their books, your income is zero. You might bring money from
Mm,
your house, they get it, but in their books, you are zero. So
mm,
all of things take its toll on your family, because you're low income. That means you have access to a lot of government things, which I love. If you're low income, you get more when it comes to child benefits. You'd be able to access medical, dental, on the government, because the government works, right? So all those things is going to play out in an interesting way. And you have friends that have been there a little longer. That dynamic of, you're just coming, you are still trying to get a job, month one, month two, month three, it takes its toll on the marriage. So I would say, so that I don't waste too much time, communication is critical for the marriage to exist. You have to be able to, one thing we don't do great of as Nigerians is we don't articulate our emotions. We
mm,
don't, we just are angry. Why are you angry?
mm,
Or really, you're not angry. You are actually frustrated. at something.
Mm,
You know, when you can articulate your emotions, then your partner can respond adequately. But when you go
mm,
out for an interview, you get back, you are mad, you're snapping at the children, you don't want to eat, you are not articulating your emotions. You're not saying, I'm
mm,
really sad because I did not get this job. I feel,
mm,
it makes me feel low, or it makes me feel small. You know, articulating your emotions is very important. So that speaks to communication in general. If I just want to bring it on a big umbrella. So keeping the family together and also helping your kids to onboard is also very, very important. The older
mm.
your kids, the higher the likelihood that they are going to struggle. And what I mean by that is not, I know we connote it to be a bad thing, but it's just that they also have to find themselves, find the new environment, find friends. And not just friends, they also need to find friends that would also accept them. You know, children thrive on acceptance. Imagine
Yeah.
going into a class where they already look different, then they sound different, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and kids can be mean, you know. So all of those things, or they open their first time they open their lunchbox, everybody's looking at what is inside your lunchbox, and you put your rice inside. The moment they open it, the whole class is wondering what is going on here. So your kids have a lot to deal with. So talking to them is also very important, making them feel
Oh,
safe.
boy.
I remember their first 2 weeks after my kids went to school, I started asking them. I took them grocery shopping. Say, what do you want? What are your friends eating that you like to eat? So that I can put that in your lunchbox, you know, things like that. So communication both ways is very important to your spouse, to your kids. The more you articulate, there are days, my initial time in Canada, my husband was not home because he went back to Nigeria. And I'm just very sad because I just want somebody I can talk to when I get back home. And I cry. And sometimes my kids are the ones hugging me to say, Mommy, it's going to be fine. So, but it's okay that we are open and honest and we're able
Yeah.
to make sure the family is together through this journey. It's usually a journey. The moment you start settling in, then you go back into your rhythm as you normally would.
Mm. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so Bumi on okay, Dre is saying or beans when you are talking about food, when the kind of foods that our children take, and
Right?
then there's like a smell in the entire class, and then somebody else. Okay, so Bumi says that in the UK, no benefits for immigrants, so many people are on care visas. They're having to do really odd jobs. Mm.
Right, right. I
Oh,
think UK is very is a stronger system. It's only for
it
the it's
is.
not for the faint-hearted.
No,
Canada
no.
is, and Canada's visas. So if you have an open work permit, if you have a permanent residency, we still have a lot of um, social benefits that you can get from the system, unlike in the UK. So and that's the reason
Mm.
why an average immigrant prefers it here, because
Yeah.
before you find your footing, you can be sure, barest minimum.
Mm.
I think when I got into Canada, what I was getting for my 2 kids as child benefits could pay my rent.
Wow.
So I'm like, if push comes to shove, at least this roof will be there. It's only food
Mm.
I need to worry about, and that's the beauty of
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah. Wow. That's really awesome. I think I really hope people are hearing this. I think that is. I mean, I think it's comforting. Let me put it that way. It's comforting. I know it can be really tough out there, but I think that rather than focusing on the tough and making noise about the tough, that won't help the person who's already there, because the person who's already there needs help through this phase. And what's the help they need? Information. Okay,
Information,
so
yeah.
having the right information is important, which is what Relocating Right is all about. Okay, so if you have not subscribed, please do so right now. Okay, the notification button is here. Just press on it, and trust me, every now and then when new episodes come up, you'll be able to know about them. Okay, finally tonight, Kemi, thank you so much. It's been an awesome time. Uh, Edison is here. He says, great topic. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about how you can be intentional about raising God-fearing kids. I know that as a parent, you're parents of your own amazing children, and by the grace of God, you're not just a pastor, but I know that you love to teach children. So I'd like to ask you, that how can we be deliberate? Now, this is asking for step one, step two, if there is or if there are, but what is the practical, how can we practically raise God-fearing kids where you are? I said to you that I wasn't going to say abroad, because now raising God-fearing kids has to be done by anybody, anywhere on this earth. As long as you're living right now, you
Absolutely.
must be deliberate about it, because indeed, like Isaiah 60 says, darkness has covered the earth and gross darkness the people.
People.
But the
Yeah.
good thing, it says that the glory of God will arise upon us. But I feel like there's an intentionality to this. So how does that work?
So thanks for that question. Intentionality
Mm.
is required as a parent, regardless of where you live, even if you live under the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why a lot of people talk about in abroad in particular is because we also have a system that works. And what
Yeah.
that means is we have a system that enables some things that usually we didn't have to worry about in Nigeria. So that is the reason why a lot of people try to differentiate to say, you know what, it's a different ball when you get abroad. So first, I would say model. If you model, you have to model the right character, model your dependency on God to your children. That we cannot
Mm.
overemphasize. We are the ones they see. And in confidence, I don't know if this is confidential because it's on YouTube, but I've been to therapy before. And one of the things they said, as one of the first set of things they said in therapy, is the fact that your response to stress was learned. That
Mm.
thing blew my mind. That means your children take from you the way you respond to the world, the way
Mm.
you respond to lack, the way you
Mm.
respond to aggression, the way you respond to, they take it in because you are modeling to them that they should do the same
Wow.
thing once
Yeah.
they get it.
Mm.
So we cannot, in raising kids, godly kids, anywhere, is first we have to model
Mm.
and model the character, model the God-given values. You model your dependency on God. Every time we get a win or we don't get a win, God
Yeah.
factor must be there. So they understand that if they ever get in a spot like you did, you are praying. Whenever I need a new job, we're all praying about it. Whenever I
Mm.
get the job, we all say it is God. And we prayed about, we're
Amen.
modeling to them that dependency on God and the reason why they should be. And there is the abroad part, which is unlike in Nigeria, we're very communal. Your neighbor can tell you if your child is not doing something they should be doing, or they are caught doing something they shouldn't. Here, nobody knocks on your door and you don't know. So it's very isolating. Living abroad can be very, very isolating. And that's the reason why a lot of people have mental health challenges when they get here. All your friends are sleeping when you're awake. All your friends in Nigeria, they're sleeping when you're awake, or you are awake when they're sleeping. So getting that support system also helps to onboard. How does that link to children? The children also face the same thing. Creating that environment, that atmosphere where they can be with other children that either have shared values, similar values as your own, is also very important. And that is why when people are talking about their choice of church and all that, I'm like, you need to be very deliberate because that is the environment you are creating for your children. Those are the people they are going to be interacting with. And if you like it or not, depending on the age of your child, they will start to listen more to their friends than they listen to you.
Yeah.
So you had better have friends, they had better have friends that you know that what they have in their mind align with your values.
Mm.
So also creating, being deliberate about your kids' association. More or less you force. Because
Mm.
if I make sure the birthday parties they are going for, they are friends that I know their
Mm-hmm.
church, or they attend my
Yeah.
church, those will be
Mm-hmm.
the friends they have, right?
Yeah.
School, I might not be able to control as much, but at
Yeah.
least outside, I know the type of children. I'm putting them in an environment where the children have had either similar experiences or I'm sure of
Mm.
the values that they bring. So that
Mm.
also helps to shape them, shape what is normal to them. And we are also very deliberate about it. We are communicating and we are modeling the God that we believe. You know, I always believe strongly about the God of their fathers, the God making sure, you know, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? God had to, it was a generational blessing, and it was the God of every of those generations. And that is what I believe. The God that we consecrate our children, immerse them so much that then that same God will be their God when they can, or when they're old enough to start making their own decisions, and they can also replicate same.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesus. Wow. Thank you so much for this last 1 hour. It's been beautiful. It's been awesome. So somebody said, thank you, Dre. He said, model dependency on God to your children. Yes, that's it. Model dependency on God to your children. I think that's where I would love to stop. I actually like, that we're hanging it there. Model your dependency on God to your children. That's, for me, I feel like that's the most important thing, legacy anyone can even leave or give to their children. And that is so beautiful. And what that means is, if we're not even dependent on God, or we don't even know this God in the first place, we won't be able to do that.
Yes.
So if we want our children to turn out right, we need to look inwards, look into our own lives, and be sure that we're living right and living lives that are pleasing to God in the first place. Otherwise, we'll be hypocritical about this. You can't give what you don't have. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Kemi.
Thank you.
Appreciate you deeply, deeply. And I'm looking forward to having you next time. And of course, if anybody sends me a question, that usually happens, after the program, many more people would watch or something, or maybe somebody is just trying to take it in, and then they send me questions. I will please send to you on WhatsApp. You can please respond for us, and then I'll relay the message some way to the person. Thank you so much for this beautiful time, and I look forward to having you again.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
So everyone on Relocating Right, can you just say thank you to my guests? Can you just say thank you to my guests this evening? Everyone, just help me appreciate Kemi, CD, or Pastor Kemi. She's Pastor Kemi.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, someone said, follow me as I follow Christ. Yes, that's it, to my sister.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Follow me as I follow Christ. All right, then. Please give our love to your boys and your amazing husband. All right, take care of you and have.
Thank you.
Yeah, Eddie says thank you. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Joining us in the last 1 hour. It's been a 1 hour, a moment of truth, if I can put it that way. When I was younger, there used to be this program, Moment of Truth. Okay, so this last 1 hour has been Moment of Truth. It's been a moment of information, and I know you're truly blessed. If you have questions, would you please reach out to us? We'll get back to you. And of course, don't forget to share this with your friends. Let your friends know about this. Your friends that are already in, they want to buy a house, they don't know how to go about it. They can learn, by simply coming to Relocating Right. And of course, I spoke about the credit system. It's one of the topics that we've had. You heard Kemi say it again, that it would be important for you to listen to that topic of credit system. Interestingly, my guest at that time is on call right now. Eddie, hi. And I want to encourage you to please go search for that on our page, and it will bless you. So many other topics that we've had on the UK, Canada, the US. It's beautiful, beautiful topics, even Australia. And guess what? We're going to Netherlands next. Are you interested? I know you are. So please plan to be a part of that, and please share with your friends. God bless you and have a beautiful weekend. Bye.